International Conference on Transforming Education. In this session, we will discuss advancing global citizenship, linear development through semester abroad in intercultural learning. So, in this topic, of course, it is a privilege to introduce Dr. Alankrita Shikara, a specialist in intercultural learning. She is dedicated to advancing intercultural competence and evaluating the impact of professional development on critical perspectives related to race, gender, immigration, and language. With her background as an educator in global studies, intercultural learning, and community engagement, she brings inspiration, leadership, and motivation. Let us warmly welcome her to the session. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Circe, and everybody who's joining here. This is a very high-tech platform, and I'm still getting used to it. So give me a moment here, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So good morning, everyone. It's good morning for me. I'm tuning in from Portland, Oregon, and it's 5:30 a.m. So hopefully I will be awake through this session. And I really want to thank you for your interest in this topic and my session. And I want to start actually by really thanking one of the organizers of this conference, Dr. Maria Guajardo, who actually nominated me to present. And it's been a couple of months since I completed my doctorate studies, which was spent in the pursuit of actually global citizenship. So this is an opportunity to reflect back on some of my own experiences and research and post that, what were the kind of programs and research that I've been involved with. So for my doctoral studies, I actually pursued a dissertation that explored the process of becoming global citizens through a narrative study of South Asian international students. I'm sorry, I'm going to... Sorry, there was some kind of connectivity issue there. Are you able to hear me? Okay. Okay, great. So the process of becoming global citizen through a narrative study of South Asian international students' forms of activism from a SOCA perspective. And in my current role, which is really an offshoot of my interest in global citizenship, I get to develop curriculum, teach, and conduct research on intercultural learning. So I am Alankrita Chikara, and I am a clinical postdoctoral research associate for the Center for Intercultural Learning, Mentorship, Assessment, and Research at Purdue University. And today I'm going to present about a course that has been designed by Silmar and intercultural specialists who work for Silmar and other experts in the field of diversity and equity and social justice. And I'm going to begin my presentation by giving an overview of the agenda for today. So we're going to start by discussing the history and the rationale for this program. Also, I want to cover the program overview and how this course is administered. Also, we have theoretical frameworks that really underlie the creation, of this curriculum and this course. I'll give a brief overview of the course structure, talk a little bit about how we assess, because that's a very important part of this learning experience. And then I want to try and actually conduct an experiential learning activity with all of us present here to just give you a taste of some of the activities that we actually have included as part of the course. And then finally conclude with some of the challenges and resources and offer actually a free resource that has been created by intercultural specialists and other intercultural learning experts around the world, which is a free resource. And I encourage all of you actually to register for it, but we'll talk about it as we move along in the presentation. And I do want to say, if you have questions, as I'm sharing, please feel free to post in the chat. I will try to wrap up 5 to 10 minutes before the end of our session here so that I can address any of those questions. All right, so let's begin. So rationale for SAIL. So the SAIL actually is an acronym, and we do have a lot of acronyms. So I apologize here. I'll do my best to reiterate what it stands for. So SAIL is the Study Abroad in Intercultural Learning course and scholarship program. And this was actually created as a mentoring course, distance learning course for students. And the rationale really came from the results of the Georgetown Consortium project, which was a longitudinal study in partnership with 3 or 4 institutions that were leading study abroad with different types of study abroad programs. And essentially, one of the findings was that intercultural competence development is most beneficial when it's carried out in an intentional, guided, and facilitated intervention. So we can all agree that people don't learn just through experience, they learn from reflecting on that experience. So the point of really developing this curriculum was to create facilitated intervention, reflection opportunities for students who engage in study abroad. Also, as part of Purdue University's goal towards transformative education, international experiences such as study abroad have been a signature feature. And so this course was really developed through the funding support, of different organizations in different bodies on campus, and through the intention of the leadership of SILMAR and Purdue University. So the program overview, as I said, this is a distance learning course to assist intercultural development. Each student receives a generous $2,000 scholarship. And I understand that study abroad does have some inequitable, challenges with inequitably when it comes to accessing. And so this is really a benefit for many of the students who may be struggling to have some kind of economical financial support to actually pursue study abroad. And during this course, students are registered for study abroad credit while they are at their partner institutions. So in collaboration with a lot of institutions in different parts of the world, Purdue has established this understanding, and students can register for semester credit. So they actually get credit, study abroad credit, while they're abroad, and it helps towards completion of their course credits to graduate. So the curriculum design, this is an important aspect, of really planning and designing, and any of you who are educators can really appreciate the aspect of, the kind of background and background work that is required to design such a curriculum. So for this, we used backward design and content mapping. And as you can see here, this is a small kind of example, of how each of the learning outcomes was clearly defined and mapped to the theoretical frameworks that were used to design the curriculum. And each activity or content piece that was included in the course was mapped, to these. And so a very clear understanding was established among, the experts designing this curriculum. And I will discuss some of the theoretical frameworks that have been used, but you can see some of the names here, which include the Intercultural Development Continuum, Pendulum Model, the AAC and U value rubric, and also self-determination theory. All right, so getting into the theoretical framework, the first one that was used is called the Intercultural Development Continuum. So the Intercultural Development Continuum was, the predecessor to this was the development model of intercultural sensitivity that had 6 orientations. So this is a linear model of developing intercultural competence, which really which helps to understand the different development orientation or mindset that an individual is in when they're engaging with cultural differences and similarities. So you start out with denial, which is really when people don't even are not aware, that cultural difference exists, right? So you don't know what you don't know. So denial is a phase where you're completely oblivious to the presence of other cultural, experiences or lived experiences. And if people come out right of this orientation of denial, they move into polarization, which is an orientation which kind of is your beginning, of engaging with cultural differences. So there is a tendency to judge, difference and think about the cultural differences in a more uh, yes, with some kind of scrutiny, because you are experiencing differences for the first time. And then moving forward, kind of in the middle, is this stage of minimization, which is when we de-emphasize difference and recognizing that these cultural differences exist. People see that culture actually is very similar, and we're all human beings. So you'll see people in this orientation make kind of statements as, we're all part of the same human race, and so our experiences are the same. So it kind of de-emphasizes the differences. Moving forward, the next stage is considered, is acceptance, which is the stage where an individual deeply starts comprehending difference. You start recognizing that the lived experience of people of different, cultural identities is very different. And then the step beyond that is trying to now see how to bridge those differences, recognizing that these differences exist, and through adaptation, how we can actually reduce kind of this gap, and trying to cross over, and trying to learn about other cultural differences, and trying to really establish connections through dialogue, through communication, which is really founded on self-awareness and understanding. The second theoretical framework that is utilized is the American Association of Colleges and Universities Intercultural Knowledge and Competence Value Rubric. And as you see here, these particular aspects, and of concept that have been identified, cornerstones of this rubric, really include cultural self-awareness, knowledge of cultural worldview frameworks, empathy, communication, curiosity. And so an important aspect of the curriculum is really embedding these aspects of learn into our learning objectives. And lastly, we utilize the intercultural praxis model. So this particular model is cyclical in nature, and it was developed by Catherine Sorrells. And as you see here, because it's a cyclical model, there's no specific entry or exit point. So and the purpose of developing this particular model stems from an understanding of how, when you engage, in the world, which is extremely and highly diverse and complex, there are power dynamics and hierarchies in place. And in order to really engage from a place of, respecting and understanding that these dynamics exist, in order to really engage in intercultural development, this is a tool that allows us to engage more meaningfully, more intentionally across differences. So as you see here, the 6 components of this particular framework include inquiry, framing, positioning, dialogue, reflection, and action. And just a brief overview, of what these concepts really stand for. Essentially, inquiry is developing and having a curiosity, and you'll probably see, right, there's alignment with the other 2 frameworks that I just introduced as well. So having that curiosity, wanting to know about, other cultural experiences, interest in learning about others, keeping dialogue and communication open. The second aspect of framing is really important, because recognizing your own frame of reference or lens, of really looking at the world, and allows us to then, engage in empathy and perspective taking, and understand others' perspectives. We also have the idea of positioning, and this is really important to the idea of praxis, because the recognition that social categories or hierarchies exist is imperative, to engaging in intercultural development, and recognizing how we may be positioned, in relation to others, in our interactions. Really, that allows for more curiosity, really learning about how somebody else's lived experience can be, different from us, and as a result of learning about this, really considering to advocate, for those whose experiences have been marginalized and silenced. The aspect of dialogue is pretty self-explanatory. And this really, and I love the use of the word stretching across difference. The IDC talks about bridging difference, and really coming out of our comfort zone to build community is the important aspect of dialogue. And then we move into reflection and action. The action component, I feel, is really the signature aspect of this particular model that we also stress in our courses and in the activities that have been designed. And interestingly, as I talked about my dissertation, which was a study of international students engaged in activism, I could really see those students who are engaged in action are constantly, reinforcing their understanding of positionality, power, privilege, and trying to come up with solutions, for ways to actually be more effective when engaging, in this world to really work towards establishing, justice and equitable relations between people, right? And reflection again, is an important part of this particular framework. And I think the entire course is really premised on the idea of reflection. And as I shared earlier, that we encourage reflection on students' experiences as they can reflect on their time abroad, as they're processing their interactions, in this new cultural space. All right, so those were really quick summaries, of the three frameworks, and I'm happy to discuss more and encourage you actually to look further into this. So the variations of SEO, this is, a little technical information which can be helpful for anybody trying to maybe envision, creating a study abroad program, trying to pair a curriculum, that really guides student learning on study abroad. So the three particular programs that are offered include the Global Engineering Experience. This is an individual mentored distance learning course. And this really has had the highest, rates of progression when it comes to assessing the intercultural development of our participants who've gone on study abroad. And as a way of really scaling, this approach, which was extremely successful, but we all know, right, that a one-on-one mentoring approach really has its limitations in the number of people it can reach. So the mentored intercultural communication experience, which is what the SAIL program or the GLUE curriculum, and GLUE actually stands for Growing, Learning, Understanding Everyone, was created to actually be offered as a cohort model mentored intercultural learning experience. And then we also have program provider courses that we have deemed as appropriate, which students can take at their locations, of study abroad, which do address and really target some of these learning objectives that we have identified as important for intercultural development. So the course that I'm presenting to you today on the GLUE is a cohort model. It's offered asynchronously, which is self-directed 8 units. And then we also have synchronous live sessions after every 2 units. The course is actually offered in 2 iterations. We have a 1 credit and a 3 credit course was just piloted last semester. And the 8 units, include readings, assignments, videos, interviews, reflective discussions, and activities. The philosophy behind this course is really to challenge and support students, right? Being in a new context, and being, having been an international student myself, I understand how difficult it can be to be in a new context and try to process, our day-to-day experiences, and then reflect on how they can really help us, with respect to developing intercultural competence. So we carry out facilitated interventions, and it's also an opportunity to build rapport. So all of our mentors who really teach the cohort are also talking about their personal experiences and sometimes personal challenges, or aspects in which we've, hit roadblocks, so that there can be a space of vulnerability and shared, experiences that can be built. So the assessment tool that is used, and you may or may not be familiar with this, it's called the Intercultural Development Inventory. And this inventory has actually been taken by thousands, of individuals globally. So it's a very actually cross-cultural tool for assessment, and we use this for pre and post testing. And each of the students actually gets to receive a group debrief. So they're emailed an individual debrief of their results. So I was talking about the 5 orientations. So they get to learn about the development orientation that they are probably approaching cultural differences and similarities from. And the group debrief gives us an opportunity to really cover some of these aspects in detail and talk about how what it takes to actually move into progression in these, right? If there are students who are in stasis, or regression, especially when it comes to our post-test group debrief. We also have mentors give feedback on assignments, being aware of the students' developmental orientation. And so feedback is really catered to help students move into progression. We have looked at scores over the last over 5 years, and there's a control group, and we've compared the results of the individual mentored cohorts and then the group mentoring cohorts. And based on the data, we really corroborated that the intercultural intervention, the facilitated intercultural intervention has greater gains in students' intercultural development, which has been encouraging and actually the ongoing reason for funding for this and support for this particular program. All right, so we have about 8 minutes left, and I do want to give some time for our discussion. So let's look at this particular experiential learning activity that we do. And so this is not something that we came up with, but I do want to give credit, to the researcher actually who came up with this category or this particular activity. So essentially, a Polish anthropologist conducted her research, really immersing herself in the life of Midwestern farmers. And so the Midwest, US is what I'm referring to. And in Purdue University, which is in Indiana, it happens to be, in the Midwest as well. So many of these students who are going on study abroad happen to be from this particular context. So what this researcher found is that farmers really have three categories of looking at the world. So essentially, the first category is scenery, which encompasses everything, in the distance. So it's part of their experience, but it's not really at the forefront. So think about kind of the mountains, the clouds, or the trees, and that's how they're engaging with the world. The second aspect, or the way of looking at the world is through as a machinery. And so machinery is everything that's required to accomplish the work. So in our case, think about your laptop or your, cell phone or other things that are required for daily existence. But it's not, necessarily something that is imperative to a lived experience. So as soon as the work, right, or that machine has completed its particular role, or function, it's not thought about. Though I'm sure our cell phones, we don't say that, about them, that we never stop using or thinking about our cell phones. And the last category is people, right? So people are really people. These are the friends, families. These are the people that, we have emotionally invested in, and we're really engaged with on a day-to-day basis, right? So this particular activity is an opportunity for students to think about also, the limits of human kind of emotion and psychology, and the limits to how we can engage and how many people, right, we can engage with as people. So the researcher didn't just find that these categories existed for looking at the world. These categories were also how farmers looked at people, right? So scenery in the case of the Midwestern farmers was maybe Native American or indigenous populations who came up in conversations during holidays, or they were seen as exotic, or there was something absolutely fascinating about them, but they were not so significant to the day to day, and they were scenery. Then machinery was probably the daily wage workers, right, who were coming and working on the farms, and they were helpful, but the farmers didn't necessarily have a personal connection, with them. They were utilized for the purpose, and then until they weren't. And then the last was the people, right? Again, it's reserved for the people who we exclusively invest our time and energy, and these are the people we have meals with. These are the people we are most vulnerable with. We share our emotions with. So before we end, I want to actually invite all of us here to think about for whom we are scenery, machinery, or people, and perhaps for us who are scenery, machinery, and people. So we actually have students engage in this particular activity, and we have guiding questions to process, open-ended guiding questions to think about how it can feel to be othered or feel to be disregarded, right, as scenery and machinery. And students have varying different approaches to this, and it's really a wonderful activity to build empathy, to begin perspective taking. And so please feel free to continue thinking about this. And actually this activity is also available to use through the Habico. So before we end, I really want to jump into the Habico as I promised. So I'm going to skip the resources slide here. So take an opportunity to check out this particular link, thehabico.org, and you can register for free here. And we have a research repository and a digital toolbox that includes activities, assignments, readings that can be utilized for intercultural learning, right? And you actually have a search feature, so you can search by tag or keyword, by tool type, or even competencies that you want to look up. So you'd be happy to know this actually has over, representatives or members from over 70 countries who are actually using the Habico. There are over 800 tools. We actually have people give us their experience or feedback of using the particular tools on the Habico. There are more articles than 68 as of now. There are also connections. The NAFSA annual conference even awarded the Habico an Innovation Technology Prize. So it's an excellent resource for anybody who is interested, in really curating international experiences or study abroad experiences, or developing curriculum to navigate and facilitate intercultural learning development. So I'm going to end here. And sorry, we have 2 minutes, but if you want to get back to me, I can post my email address in the chat. And if you want to reach out to me, please do. We actually have an Indian University, Plaksha, that is partnering with us. And as they're interested, in the curriculum and really developing intercultural learning tools for their purposes. And so the GLUE curriculum that I introduced is also available to license to different organizations. So feel free to reach out if you're interested. Thank you so much for your long attention. And I enjoyed sharing about the course with all of you.